Hey, good evening, my friends. How are you? Welcome to another edition of Wednesday Night Live with me, Mike Avery. Back here tonight in the home office, the home studio. Very good evening. How are you? Cliff, always a pleasure. Randy, thanks for joining me. Always a pleasure to be here on Wednesday Night Live. Nice night out there. A little warm, a little muggy, but it is July. This is the 4th of July weekend. Can you believe that it's the 4th of July weekend already? Johnny Bowler, my good friend. Nice picture you sent me there, buddy. Greg Plowman, how you doing, bud? Let's see if I stop the cycling on the music. I did. I'm getting smarter as I get older. Jeff, good evening. How are you? My name is Mike Avery. This is Wednesday. I am getting dumber as I get older. What I did was I set this all up and then I walked away from it to go to church. Haven't been able to go to church Sunday the last few weeks, so I wanted to go tonight for our Wednesday night service. So I set it up, thought I had everything all ready to go, came back here and things were a little bit askew, but I'm good to go now. Jeff, good evening. Robert, how are you? Appreciate you joining me on this edition of Wednesday Night Live. Uncle Johnny, Tony, my fellow skinny water brother. Tony, you and Randy have it dialed in right now. I'm so anxious to get out there. The fishing looks like it's really good, and I want to take advantage of it. Now, here's how it's going to happen. I'm going to get my boat tomorrow. I'm going to pick up my boat tomorrow at Linwood Beach Marina. I'm going to run it across the bay to my marina where I stay. It's not mine. I don't own it where I stay. And then my grandson Trent is going to join me after he gets out of work, and we're going to fish for a couple of hours. So hopefully, Tony, I can get advantage or take advantage or, catch a couple of those fish up in there with my grandson Trent. And then maybe Uncle Johnny, Aunt Debbie, because my wife Denise was just saying, well, why don't we go out on the boat Friday with Deb and John? That's wonderful. I'd love to. But I'm going to have to do a little fishing too, because it doesn't do me any good to go on the water if I don't get some content fishing. So, Johnny, if you're up to that, let's do it. JT, good evening, buddy. How are you? Randy, always a pleasure. Johnny said it's getting a little rough. He's headed in. Johnny is out on the water in the UP right now. He's on vacation. Because when bear season comes around, he'll be working his butt off. And then when the snowplow season comes around, he'll be working his butt off. Bernie, good evening, buddy. How are you? Joe, always a pleasure. Cliff says, I was able to see the video of Ted Nugent on Up North Live today. He brings that up because Ted Nugent's on the show this week. I'll talk more about that conversation extensively. JT says, awesome. Would love to learn the skinny water sometime. Oh, Johnny says, we're down for that. Excellent, Johnny. Thank you. JT, it is the most simple, basic, straightforward way to fish you'll ever find. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's very easy if the fish are in there. And that's the whole thing. You'll know within a couple passes if the fish are in there or not. If they are, you can have some fantastic fishing so close to the mouth of the river. It's just crazy. TJ, good evening, buddy. Sorry I missed last week. I was busy running fire calls last Wednesday during the storms. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, TJ. We had a very nice Wednesday Night Live on Saginaw Bay. The only problem with last week's Wednesday Night Live was it was extremely windy. The longer we were out there, the rougher it got, the windier it got, and I had a real problem with the audio because at that point I was taking the audio off my phone. I'm using my phone as my streaming device. But honestly, when you think about it, the fact that I can go 6 miles offshore on Saginaw Bay and do a live stream using just my iPhone is pretty cool. When you consider that back in the old days when I was on TV news, I had to do a live shot with me, a videographer, a live van, a TV studio, a director, a technical director, an audio person, and all that other good stuff. Aditya, good evening, buddy. How are you? Are you back home tonight? Congrats on the change in your life. I look forward to seeing you guys this weekend. And by the way, Aditya, I just filled up your foursome for my charity golf outing. It will be you and James and Ryan and Andy Weiss of Truck Trolley. I thought Andy had a foursome together, but he didn't, not yet. I said, Andy, you want to fish with our crew or hunt golf with our crew? And he said, yeah, absolutely. So there you go. Bernie, Ted Nugent on your show. I thought there was an issue with something like that. I thought there was too. Bernie, I thought I had been blackballed by the Nugent organization. I was talking to the wrong person. I don't want to say that. I wasn't talking to the wrong person. I thought I had been blackballed, but I think that has all gone away. Because actually, my conversation with Ted today was probably the best conversation I've ever had with him on air. It was really, really a good conversation. Michael, good evening. Hey, Matt, how you doing, buddy? Another Michael, good evening to you. Good evening, Mike. Always enjoy. Look like the nose got some sun. What about the top of my head? What about my cheeks? What about my arms? Yeah, this always gets read. And it's not from being on the water, for the most part. It's from being on the golf course. Angie, how are you? I don't know if you know this, but I had an interesting text conversation with your hubby the other day. He's such a nice guy. He is such a nice guy. I would strongly encourage people, if you are in the Midland area, Midland, Michigan area, and you're looking for a place to eat with a family, or anybody, because they got beer there. Good food, great pizza, excellent salad, Pizza Sam's in Midland. We love Pizza Sam's. Downtown Midland, great environment, super location. Anyway, if you didn't talk to Gus about that, ask him the details on that, Angie. Okay, so can you believe it's the 4th of July weekend, this weekend? I can't. I can't believe it. I can't believe that it is the 4th of July weekend. The weather has changed for us. Apparently, maybe we're going to get a little bit of a break from the northeast winds. Mike Sills, Michigan Outdoorsman, how's it going? With you, buddy, one of the prolific online content creators you will ever meet. This guy right here, Mike Sills. Doing well, Mike. How are you? Anyway, last week on Wednesday Night Live, we caught a ton of fish. I think we caught, well, not a ton. We caught 20 fish in a short time we had to do it. But again, we weren't out there to catch fish. We were out there to do a live stream. I didn't know how bad the audio was because I couldn't see my comments. Now, next time I go to do that, I'm going to figure out something different for the audio. I couldn't really use a wireless mic because there were 4 of us in the boat. I do have a shotgun mic, a small one that I plug into my phone that has a pretty good windscreen on it. But it points one direction. So it can't get me behind the camera and my subject's in front of the camera. So I have to ponder this a little bit more and figure out how to do it. It would be also beneficial on like my Wednesday night lives at the Lumberjack restaurant. It would be a big help as well. Mike Critchfield, my good friend, thank you. On this on this 4th of July weekend, Mike Critchfield, thank you for helping to keep our country free. Appreciate you, buddy. Joe, excited to hear that interview. It was nice to hear him unload in Lansing. He did, Joe. He unloaded in Lansing. Let me tell you some of the topics I talked about because I made it a little note. I asked him, number one, I said, Ted, I know you were there to rail against the DNR and the NRC, but why were you there? Who invited you there, and what was the group you were speaking to specifically? I asked him, I said, I'm trying to think of a good word here. Why your pissing match with the DNR? Is it because they sued you a few years ago for having Russian boars, so-called Russian boars, in your enclosure down by Jackson? DNR lost that case. I also asked him about the story about how did you get a gun into the Capitol building? I know the guy, whether he was a trooper or private security. I don't know him personally, but I suspect strongly that when you walked through the metal detector, they knew you had a gun. They let you go through anyway. What's the behind the scenes? What's the backstory on that? I also asked him, I said, in past years, you've had a feud with MUCC, Michigan United Conservation Clubs. Yet, just recently, you did a podcast with MUCC, a video podcast that will be dropped next week. I said, are you making nice with MUCC now? And I said, I certainly hope that you are. And then I said, why do you do this? You've been doing this for 40, 50 years now. You got all the money you could ever need. You've had a successful rock career. Why do you continue to put yourself out in the public eye in situations that you know are going to continue to cause you to be in the crosshairs? So those are some of the questions I asked him. And again, he was very good. He wasn't over the top, yet he was very insightful. He was very it was a good conversation. I would ask you to look forward to that. That is in the third hour of this week's show. Tim, good evening. How are you? Mad Jack, nice to have you along with us. Hey, Kevin. Settling into our new house in Midland post-surgery rehab is going well. Oh, I just got a text from Nugent. Let me see what it says. Are you on here tonight, Ted? He hasn't made a comment, but I suspect that he's on here tonight because I just got a text from him. Are you currently on my Wednesday? I have a feeling that he is. Anyway, it was, again, probably the best conversation I've ever had with the Motor City Madman. It was really enjoyable, and he was outstanding. Tim, good evening, buddy. How are you? Eric, nice to have you along with us. Ruben, once again, how are things in Colorado? Dave, always a pleasure. Bill Lincoln, good evening, Mike. I'm looking forward to fishing in Canada, but is it the same week as a golf? But I'm thinking golfing with all the listeners would be a blast. Yeah, it is going to be a blast. And here's the event that Bill's talking about. The second annual Mike Avery Outdoors charity golf outing to benefit Let me just respond to Nugent. Okay. This is Friday, July 25th, this event right here. It is to benefit MUCC's youth camp. I don't think we're sold out. I think we have a few more spots for both golfers and for people who want to sponsor the event. If you would like to help us out, go to the website, mucc.org/golf, mucc.org/golf, and check it out. We'd love to have you join us. Okay. Darren, good afternoon. How are you? Larry. I had an excellent week, Chad, although it's not over yet. How about you? Jerry, you made it this evening. Anybody here know why they drained Trout Lake? I don't. Anybody else? Ken, good evening. Oh, Tim does. Supposedly the dam was in danger. This guy right here, Tim Binns, the keeper of all knowledge. This guy is like my brain. When I can't find my brain, Tim is, oh, it does look like my nose really got it, doesn't it? That's from softball games. I got to start putting some, when I start going out on the water tomorrow, I will start putting some sunscreen on my nose to kind of blend it in a little bit because it does always get very red. Sitting here in the dark watching me. Why are you in the dark? Linda, checking in from Lake Mitchell. How are things up north? Jerry, nice to have you along with us on this edition of Wednesday Night Live. I heard something very interesting, and I was going to say disturbing, but it wasn't really disturbing today. I've had 2 reports of people hearing cicadas buzz already. And I feel like we're about a week to 10 days early for cicadas to start buzzing. Why is that significant? Because I think the earlier the cicadas buzz, the earlier we get a killing frost. At least that's what the old saying is. Steve says a tree fell on some power lines near your house. Tim says this one was easy, 15 minutes from home. Yeah, but you'd look it up or already know it anyway. Hey, Brian Dare, how are you? Nice to have you along with us on this edition of Wednesday Night Live. My name is Mike Avery. Last week, Wednesday Night Live, we were live on Saginaw Bay. Catching walleye with Mr. Angler Quest, Brad Dupuy, also out there. I'm just laughing at Nugent's response. Uh, Also out there was Bill Hahn of Jay's Sporting Goods and Rich Krazan of Killer Food Plots. Linda says it's beautiful up there. Great golf, great fishing, perfect for golf. And Linda, we will see you in West Branch in 3 weeks. Read today, state parks are having gun safety with learning how to shoot BB gun safety. Excellent. I did not know that. Perfect. Chad says he made it up to West Branch to pick up the goods from winning the giveaway. Thanks again. Thank you, Chad. I hope you get a chance to enjoy them. Okay, so I'm texting back and forth with Ted Nugent because, again, the timing was weird because we were just talking about him. I said, are you currently on my Wednesday night live? He says, no, I'm sitting in a tree with crappy cell signal. He didn't use the word crappy. I said, I was just talking about our conversation and you texted. Interesting timing. He said, I'm sitting here in feral Russian boar territory. I've been skunked 5 days in a row because he's wild boar hunting as his enclosure down by Jackson. He says, fish in a barrel, canned hunt my ass. That's Ted's word, not mine. Bill, missed you a few weeks ago getting ready for the National High School Trap Competition. Go get him, guys. Brent, good evening, buddy. How are you? I have Nugent's number if anybody wants it. Chris checking in from a hot Kansas. I bet it is hot in Kansas. Because it's summertime. It's July. It's almost the 4th of July. Let me give you a quick update on the Rapid River knife, the Mike Avery Custom Edition, the Signature Edition. It will be similar to this, but this one is very special. This one is mine. There's only one of these. This has a woolly mammoth handle on it. The Signature Edition will not have a woolly mammoth handle. It will not. It also will not have the original handle I was hoping for, which was red acrylic and burl maple burl. Because in talking with Chris Durson, it was just going to be too hard to make that knife in the numbers that we're going to need. He said, I can make you half a dozen of them, but I can't make you 100 of them. Or hundreds, which is, I hope, what we're going to sell of them. So I've been going back and forth with Chris. In fact, we were texting just yesterday. He's sending me samples of the red acrylic, and we're going to pick out the color. So we're working on it. Don't forget about the Eastside Charity Shoot for MUCC's Youth Camp, August 8th at Multi Lakes. Thank you, Steve, for reminding me of that. I was surprised when I said I can give you Nugent's number. Nobody said, I'll take it. Let me tell you who's coming up on the show this week. My first guest this week is a good friend of ours, Nick Grillo of Michigan Brand Meats. Nick was recently up on Northern Lake, Michigan. In fact, he was fishing out of Leland. He took his Polar Craft and a good buddy out there, and they went out like 10 miles, 12 miles, 15 miles offshore or from port, and they were jigging for lake trout. Crystal clear water up there. Nick got some outstanding video, some outstanding pictures. He actually had a drone over his boat shooting video while he was jigging and hooked the fish while he was jigging. Very cool adventure. And yeah, we can do that. I'm sure we can. Very cool adventure. And we talked about that. We also talked about my newest, I wish I had some right here, favorite snack. I discovered these last weekend when we were leaving a softball tournament down by Grand Blanc, down by Flint, and I didn't have any breakfast, so I was starving when we left. I pulled into the party store there, and there was a big old rack of Michigan brand products. I didn't quite know what I wanted, but I knew I was really hungry, and then I saw it. There it was, a bag of the Michigan brand. What do they call it? Snack and Jack, or I don't know what it is. But it's got venison hunter sticks in there and hunks of cheese. It was perfect. So we talked about that. Okay, I'll talk more about the radio show in a minute. Steven said hoping to go to that shoot as well. The West Side Charity Shoot was a few weeks ago. Was a blast. Linda says red acrylic. It'll match your new truck, which of course will be sporting a truck trolley. Speaking of truck trolley, Linda, I was just saying that Andy Weiss of Truck Trolley will be at our event. Andy is also donating a truck trolley for our event. When I talked about you know, helping to sponsor the event. You can do it with cash if you want, or if you have a company or a product, you can donate that we can use to raffle off and make some money. Andy is actually fishing in my second foursome with my son. Fishing, I keep saying fishing, sorry. Golfing in my second foursome with my son James, my son-in-law Aditya, nephew Ryan, and Andy is golfing with them. Tim says, I'm going out on the bay tomorrow. Any special water depths? DNR says 20 to 40. Wow, that really narrows it down, doesn't it? Tim, where are you going out of? You tell me where you're going out of, and I will answer your question. Craig, good evening. How are you? Oh, you were there at the same tournament last weekend at the Bicentennial Park. Isn't it a wonderful field? My granddaughter, Addison, I call her Pooper, and I have since she was a Pooper, is actually in Indy playing ball at a big tournament this weekend. Okay, so Nick Grillo of Michigan Brand Meats, then Tom Campbell of Woods and Water News wraps up the opening hour of the show. There we go. I put my thumb up. Facebook thinks I need a thumb up. Second hour, an icon in the fishing industry, Mark Romanek of Fishing 411, joins me to talk about the finer points of trolling and depth management with your lures. Then Justin Tomei of MUCC joins me. And I also asked Justin about having Uncle Ted on their podcast. And I said, he said some really bad things about you guys. Are you making nice now? And he said, look it. Ted Nugent is probably Ted Nugent is one of the strongest advocates for shooting and hunting in this country. We don't want to be at war with him. If we can agree to disagree on certain topics and work with him, that would be wonderful. And during my interview with Ted, when I asked him that question, he said, look it, yeah, we've had some disagreements. We still have some disagreements, but it's time for us all to get active and become more active and work together. In fact, he said, I support Amy Trotter and the staff at MUCC. And then he went on to say, I think everybody listening to this radio conversation, talking about the radio show that Ted was on and will be on this weekend, he said, I think everybody should join MUCC. Pretty cool, huh? Your daughter plays for Finesse 15U. My granddaughter Addie plays for Bolts 18U. And then she's also going to be playing for Calvin University this fall. Well, next year. Gray or the Pine River. See, going up there, I can't help it. Hey, Craig Plowman. Craig Plowman, are you still on here, buddy? My buddy Craig Plowman, who runs an Angler Quest and lives and fishes a lot out of Gray, can tell you better than that. Craig Plowman, where would Tim Tyler go tomorrow for walleye if he's fishing out of Gray or the Pine River? Give him some advice, please. Yeah, it is nice. Dean, good evening. How are you? Okay, and then in hour number 3, and the Ask Avery question. The strangest? I can't say it's the strangest. One of the stranger questions I've ever had for the Ask Avery segment. In fact, at first, I did not know if it was a real question or not. It comes from John Ebenho. John says, I'm a farmer, and I get summer kill tags for deer due to the damage they cause in my fields. At one of my fields, there are at least 6 rabbits that have eaten a decent amount of soybeans. My question is, can the DNR give out licenses to kill rabbits out of season due to the damage they have done in my one field? Thanks for your help, John Ebenho. And honestly, at first, I didn't know if it was legit or not. But the more I looked at it, I thought, well, I think the guy's actually asking a real question. So I reached out. The answer is, if he can show actual substantial crop damage, the wildlife could issue permits for the trapping or removal of the rabbits. Interesting. Craig, are you on here? We're trying to get an answer for Tim. Craig Plowman, are you on here? I'm trying to get an answer for Tim Tyler, who is fishing out of Gray or the Pine River tomorrow. Where should he go? If you were fishing the inner bay, I'd have some advice for you, even though I haven't been out. I've been talking to a lot of people. Ted fights hard for hunting rights everywhere he goes. He does. Steve says, your granddaughter's going to be near me. Calvin is not that far. Excellent. Tim said, I think yes. Yes, you can. Craig Roberts says, straight out of the river, 24 to 30 feet crawlers, fish are suspended. The Pine River, Craig? And Craig Plowman. Let me text Craig real quick. You still on? Because Craig would be a great guy to answer your question, too. I'll tell you where I would go and where I will go tomorrow is skinny, like water less than 10 feet. But not everybody's into that. Oh, he did respond. He said he responded. Craig Plowman said he responded. Did anybody see it? Craig Roberts responded, but Craig Plowman did not. Unless Craig has two accounts. I'm sorry, Craig, I don't see it. Craig Roberts responded, said Gray River. They were found him there last weekend. It says Craig was on the east side of the channel out from Gray. Did better than me Sunday. Okay. Anyway, Craig, thank you for that. I don't see it, but I'm sure it's on here. I just haven't seen it yet. So whenever we can help out fellow anglers and hunters on here, I'm all for it. And then, so the third hour of this week's show has, of course, Uncle Ted, Motor City Madman Ted Nugent, and then Wild Game Chef Extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner. And he has a fish chowder recipe for us this week that he said is perfect for about anything that swims except for perch. He said, don't use it for perch. They're too small. But he said you could make an excellent sheephead chowder out of this. And he is going to have a sheephead recipe for us next week. I've never eaten sheephead, but they say if you take the back straps off them, you can't tell them from walleye. New comments. So what's the hold up there, Steve? If I have a chance to get back home, you'll be willing to make a trip to the bay for fun. Craig Plowman, straight out of the river and 30 feet plus south of the rifle bar, 15 to 25. Thank you, Craig. Chris Beebe, yes, if I can do it, Chris. The thing is, I'm getting the boat so late this year, and I have so many trips that I've already committed to, and my time window is very short because, honestly, once we get to about the golf outing, I'm done. So that's like 2.5, 3 weeks from now. So I would do my best, but don't make a trip back home with that in mind specifically for that, Chris. But I would certainly do my best. Normally, I get the Angler Quest end of April, early May. So I've got May, June, and July to fish. This year, and it's through nobody's fault. And it's a position that I knowingly and willingly put myself in, is why I got the Angler Quest so late this year. And I'm okay with that, but I will make the most of it during the time that I have it. It is a 24-foot Angler Quest QUEST Pro Troll with a 225-horse Merc outboard on it. This boat, in some ways, is a test boat. It is a prototype boat because Brad put 26-inch tubes on two boats this year, the 26-footer that he's running and the 24-footer that I'm running. The rest of the boats have 25-inch tubes on them. So it was it's an experiment to see if the bigger tubes are actually worth doing. And at this point, Brad says he's thinking no, because he doesn't notice a difference in ride with the 26-inch tubes over the 25s, but he does notice that the top end is the top end speed suffers a little bit. Like he had my boat up to 40 miles an hour the other day, and he said if I had 25-inch tubes, you could probably get 44 out of it. Oh yeah, Chris. I will be done walleye fishing here by the end of July. Yep, but we'll make it work sometime. Craig says he's going out tomorrow. He's starting by the channel by the shipwreck. Not being an au gray guy, I don't really know what that means, but Tim, I can tell you Craig is an au gray guy. He's an excellent angler, and if he says he's starting to the channel by the shipwreck, that's a good place to start. So here's my plan for tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, I have to be on the Art Lewis show at 9 o'clock. So if you want to listen to that, he's on WSTW AM and FM, and it'll be live on WSTW.com. So I will be with Art from 9 till 10. On the way home, I'm going to stop by the storage unit, pick up a lot of my fishing gear, meaning rods and life jackets and stuff. Not all of it, a lot of it. This is going to get really boring. Then I'm going to come home and mow the lawn and do some work. And then I'm going to head over to Linwood Beach, and I'm going to put my gear on the boat. I'm going to launch the boat. I'm going to fill up the boat with gas there at Linwood Beach, and then I'm going to run it out into the bay. Depending on what time I pick the boat up, I might do a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour of experimenting fishing in the deeper water there. I need to learn the new boat. It's got a Garmin graph on it, so I got a Garmin this year, so I need to load my waypoints, which, by the way, my waypoints are right here on this card. So I'll need to load my waypoints. I need to figure out how to run the new autopilot. I need to figure out how to put that boat into the troll control mode through the Garmin instead of the Lowrance. So I've got some shakedown time. And then I will run the boat over to the marina. My grandson Trent is going to meet me after he gets out of work. And we're going to fish for a couple hours tomorrow night. And then he's going to run me back to Linwood Beach Marina to pick up my truck. And then Friday, maybe my wife Denise and Uncle Johnny and Aunt Debbie are going to go out and, if they will let me, fish for a couple of hours and maybe just break in the boat a little bit more. But it doesn't do me any good to take this brand new boat out on the water and not fish it. Doesn't do Brad any good, doesn't do me any good. So if I'm going to be on the water with that boat, I need to fish it. Tim says, got to go, farm work calls. The work of a farmer is never done. And the work of a dairy farmer is never, ever, ever done. I grew up on a farm, but we had beef cows. And that was enough work right there because you can never get away from chores every morning, every night. But the milking of cows, that takes it to a whole new level. And by the way, raise your hand. How many of you here have ever hauled hay? And I don't mean these big round bales you pick up with a tractor. I mean the rectangular bales of hay that are packed together by the it's not a hay bine. What do you call the machine? See, it's been so long that makes the bales and then wraps them up and ties twine around them. Eric has 50-pound bales, 60-pound bales, 70-pound bales if they're a little bit wet. You have not lived until you have hauled hay on a 90-degree muggy day up in the top of a barn stacking it. Baler. Thank you, Rick. Hay baler. Johnny says he has. Mike says lots of it. Jerry says, yep. You have not lived until you have hauled hay on a 90-degree and muggy day in the top of a barn with no wind moving at all. Tell you what, teaches you how to work. If you do that, you can do anything. Did that in West Branch. Larry says, yep. Oh my gosh, a hay baler, but his dad's nodder didn't work, so they wrote on the back and hand tied the twine. That's hardcore, Larry. Hardcore. Craig says, oh my gosh, and yes, it sucks. Craig used to help a lot of farmers get hay as a kid. And you know why? You know why it's the kids who do it? Because it would kill an old guy or even a middle-aged guy. It is a job for young, dumb kids who just know how to work. I remember coming home from those days so sunburned I couldn't stand it. And I mean, honestly, going right to bed. Eat a huge meal and go right to bed. Small square baler. Jeff said he did it one time. 3 square bales I did in high school. I did it all through like middle school and high school. And 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 what about the science and the art form of stacking hay bales on a hay wagon? To get that thing to hold together, what, 6, 7 high as you're going down the road? That is an art form, my friends. Dave says he's tossed and stacked hay bales rolling through the fields when a lot younger in Rose City. A lot younger. Try putting up loose hay. Jim, I have never done that. I hear stories about it, but I have never put up loose hay. Bernie. And I always say that too, Bernie. Growing up on a farm, you learn to work. And there is nothing more miserable than hauling hay, stacking hay on a muggy summertime day, which seems to be the only time you cut hay from the field to the hayloft. It would be great for the high school football team, yeah. You want to learn a work ethic? You go haul hay. Oh my gosh. I would like to. I can't say I hated it because I didn't know it. I didn't know any better. That's just what I did at that age. That's how I made my money, was hauling hay. And then because I was a little, I don't want to say smarter, but I learned how to drive a tractor at a very, very young age. So that made me more valuable. So after a few years of throwing the bales, I was the kid who drove the tractor because I know how to do it. And so I would get my friends from town who didn't know how to drive a tractor. I'd get them to throw the hay bales and I would drive the tractor. And I was hot stuff. I agree with you, Chris. Jerry says his grandkids still do it. I think that's wonderful. Joe says my back hurts just listening. My back, my knees, my hips. Tony says, and picking pickles and hoeing beans and beets. Yep. Steve said he hasn't done that with a hay, but cutting and splitting firewood is tough. It is tough. You miss it, Ken? You know, that's an interesting point. Could I go out and do it today? No. Would I want to go out and do it today? But do I miss that experience of working so hard that you've got nothing left physically and collapsing at the end of the day? Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Being sunburned so bad you can't stand it. Going to bed in a house with no air conditioning. Didn't cool down. Get up the next morning and do it again. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Ken. But don't you think we're getting a little off topic here? Yes, we are, in fact. Okay. I'm going to continue to plug this event until it actually happens, okay? Because I think it's such a great cause. Second annual charity golf outing to raise funds for MUCC's youth camp is Friday, July 25th at the West Branch Country Club in beautiful West Branch, Michigan. If you'd like to help out, if you'd like to play, if you would like to donate, or if you have some item or product or service you want to donate that we can raffle off to raise money, go to the website, mucc.org/golf, and you can join us. Also, a big shout out, a big thank you to the Security Credit Union Foundation for stepping up and becoming not our title sponsor, but our major sponsor for the year. Also, we've had a lot of people on here tonight. Craig Plowman comes to mind, who has offered up African safaris, and then also made a very generous contribution as an additional sponsor outside that. mucc.org/golf. mucc.org/golf. Okay, Tony says, oh, look at this. Third generation farmer, dairy farm. That's interesting, Bernie. I did not realize that. Congrats to you. That's very cool. Very cool. My mom still lives on the family farm, the farm that I farmed when I was a kid that my granddad had. My brother also lives on that property, so he's third generation on that property. They don't farm it anymore, but they have a farmer that they lease it to. We are showing our age. Yep, Tony, them was the good old days. Tony, my fellow skinny water walleye rat, and I say that with all respect. Tony's been out there a lot this summer in that skinny water. Tony is one of only a couple of people, maybe 3, that are actually allowed to go in there without paying the fine. Tony can sneak in there anytime he wants because he's been in there as long as I have. So he is allowed to go in there. He's not like poaching somebody else's fish. He's not violating while he's out there. And I don't mean that in the DNR sense. I mean that in the Mike Avery sense. So he's allowed out there. The rest of you guys go sneaking in there. I have a buoy system set up. It records MC numbers, and you have to pay the toll. Johnny. No, it's a couple of ice-cold beers, way better than a warm drink of water back in the day. True. Ken, I haven't done it in 20 years, but did it this summer. 600 bales in 2.5. What does that mean? 2.5 what, Ken? 600 bales. Wow. Version of throwing hay down days, moving the much-beloved orange barrels. The much-beloved orange barrels. No more livestock. Yep. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, right? When you get rid of the cows, you get rid of a lot of the work. James, good evening, buddy. How are you? Okay, anything else we should talk about? I would strongly encourage you, my friends, as you are out enjoying this Independence Day weekend, that you find the radio show and give it a listen. And listen in particular. Well, I think it's a very strong show across the board this week. So listen to the whole show if you can. But check out the conversation, and I don't call it an interview. It was a conversation with Ted Nugent in the 3rd hour of the show. 600 bales in 2.5 hours? Yowza. With Ted Nugent, I found him to be extraordinarily insightful and dedicated and passionate. Now, he's always been that way, but there was something about our conversation today that really struck me. So check that out. If you can't hear the broadcast version of the show, I would encourage you to check out the podcast version of the show. One more time, because I want to make sure we fill up this event. I want to make sure we sell out. I want to make sure we raise a bunch of money. I have not said this on the radio show, but I will say this here on my live stream. My goal is to clear $30,000 for the MUCC Youth Camp. We cleared $10,000 last year, and it was our first time event. So I don't think it's unreasonable, especially with the financial help of Security Credit Union. I don't think it's unreasonable to set a goal of $30,000. And if we could do that and get kids involved in the outdoors, I'm all in. MUCC.org/golf, MUCC.org/golf. Joe says, good luck on the water tomorrow, Mike. Thank you, Joe. It will not be a hardcore day of fishing. It will be a shakedown cruise for the New Angler Quest, and I will sneak in some fishing while I'm doing it. Most of your likes cuffing that little ball, that little white ball. I can get it. Hey, Jim. I enjoyed the pictures of you and Wayne the other day. You're more than welcome, Tim. I bet you were sore. No, I haven't covered the changes for suppressors. Don't know anything about it. Don't have time tonight, but I suspect they are becoming more... John, when the podcast version of the show is uploaded, and that is Sunday evenings or afternoons at 6, it automatically shows up on my Facebook page. And I think in fact, I'm quite sure that all of my Facebook posts are indeed shareable. Oh.
Every master of the wild, your stories and laughter keep us beguiled. Every fish that you catch, every
Now,
hunch you
it's not a
embrace brings us
Ted Nugent
closer
ballad.
than nature's grace.
But thank you to Bill Hoffman, the most interesting man in Michigan, for doing this for me.
Fulfills the dream. Every fish that you catch, every hunt you embrace.
All right, my friends, thanks for joining me on this edition of Wednesday Night Live. I do appreciate you being along. Have a great holiday weekend. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address is mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know what's on your mind. Let me know what you're thinking of. Sign up for the golf outing. Going to be a lot of fun. And thanks again for joining me on Wednesday night.